Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, good morning. Here we are to Friday.
Getting down to the wire. I don't even know what that means.
Well, I'll finish your sentence then. Getting down to the wire, because 1 week from now, the House wants this big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
That may not be as beautiful as conservatives want.
It's going to be a big bill.
Ron Johnson said yesterday the ugly truth about the big, beautiful bill. He was on Fox Business. Here's what he had to say about this here, all right? Okay, here we go.
Can you tell us specifically where you want those spending cuts to take effect?
Yeah, throughout the more than 2,000 lines in the federal budget, which we never scrutinize. I've laid out a number of pre-pandemic spending options going back to Clinton in 1998, Obama 2014, Trump 2019, and leave Social Security, Medicare, and interest alone. You take those actual total expenditures, increase them by population and inflation, you'd end up spending somewhere between $5.5 and $6.5 trillion. This year we're spending over $7 trillion. So that's a huge gap. Doge and Elon Musk have shown us how to do this. You have to look specifically, line by line. We're just not willing to take the time or do the work.
Do we have the time?
So we have to do that.
Do we have the time to go through all these pages line by line? Surely that's talking months, isn't
it? Put a lot of people on it, okay? Yes, we have time. Listen, I've always been for a multiple-step process. I think it's a mistake to do one big, beautiful bill. So we're actually going to add to the deficit. I mean, I would think the first goal of a budget reconciliation process by Republicans would be to don't make the problem worse. My calculations, we're going to actually increase the deficit. We're going to go from $37 trillion in debt to over $60 trillion in debt over the next 10 years. It's completely unsustainable. So we've got to get this under control, but give the president the border funding, extend current tax law, take an automatic tax increase off the table, make sure we don't default on our debt. We could have already had that done. But now we're into this very complex, very difficult negotiation on one big, beautiful bill. That's just not getting the job done. I ran in 2010 because we were mortgaging our children's future. We were $14 trillion in debt. Now we're $37 trillion in debt. And Republicans aren't fixing the problem. We're exacerbating it.
Yeah. False?
No.
No.
I'd like to get on the, go down the path of let's not default on the debt. Okay, but what does that look like in his eyes? Because that's about raising the debt ceiling. And again, do we do this in a limited approach? The problem with the limited approach is, as rank and filer, I don't believe that it's ever going to be limited. You can lift it, because Rand Paul makes the point. Look, we should lift it enough to cover a few months, and we don't raise it, the debt ceiling to by $5 trillion, because that implies that they're expecting to raise the debt by $3 trillion next year alone. Well, I'd say even beyond that, and I agree with them, but that also requires and implies that there's going to magically be some fiscal sanity at some point over the next few months, or at the very least over the next year and a half, leading up to the midterm, and I suspect that will not be the case.
Well, when he said we're not willing to put in the time or the work, and he goes, we have the time. Well, then you have the time, but you're not willing to put in the time. Who's not willing to put in the time and the work?
Right.
I don't understand that point. You got 2,000 points. You've been in office. You've had the new Congress since January.
Yeah.
You could have been going line. What do you mean? You go through line by line. Now you don't have the time because you want a bill done by next week.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
I don't buy that.
Are we watching a clock here, or what
Well-
are we doing? Why are we all of a sudden making it about clock watching?
I don't buy that. If you cannot remove Medicaid benefits from able-bodied people
Yeah.
for another 4 years, well, we're going to do it. We're just not going to do it now. We'll phase it in over that period of time. If you cannot get rid, if you're phasing out all the Green New Deal crap in the infrastructure bill over the next 4 years and you can't do it now, it's not about not having the time and work. You are afraid of any type of cuts because you believe there will be political consequences. Because don't give me the thing of time and work.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it just, that doesn't make sense. But when you look at things, for example, I saw this actually was from Sunday, Mornings with Maria, and it was on Fox Business, and it was Secretary of HUD. Turner was on there and talked about almost 50% of work-eligible households receiving HUD funding don't have a single person working.
Wow.
Here it is.
I was visiting one of our public housing authorities, the residents that live there in a city in our country, and I was visiting with them about the deplorable conditions that they live in one of our public housing authorities, which we're taking inventory of all of those as well. And I heard the story, the testimony of one young lady said, I have been living in this public housing authority in this project since 1973. That means she has been living there since birth or shortly thereafter. And so because of that, her mother, probably her grandmother, raised her there. She's living there. Now she's raising her children there. And so that's the paradigm that we want to change. My parents, neither one of them went to college, but they both instilled in me a tremendous work ethic, and it has made our family stronger. And that's what we want here, not just at HUD, but from the administration, our country overall, is to have young people to see those coming before them, working hard, providing for them families, because if young people are incentivized to work, that will change our culture. It'll change our workforce. It'll increase earnings, increase family stability. And so that's what we're after here at HUD. That's what the president and our administration is after. And Maria, I believe that it is beneficial for the posterity of our country, the rehabilitation and the reconciliation of our.
So I said Maria, I meant Maria. But he wrote there, this is Scott Turner wrote, almost 50% of work-eligible households receiving HUD funding don't have a single person working. That needs to change. If people are incentivized to work, it will change the culture, change our workforce, and strengthen our economy. This is how we achieve generational revitalization. How do you incentivize people to work?
You take away the benefits.
It's like the exact same thing, this discussion going on in the Trump administration. Well, let's pay people to have babies as if people have babies because of pay.
Right. Yeah.
It's the culture that needs to change.
Right.
And if the culture is, we'll pay you to do something that we believe is right, that never works.
No, and again,
if you,
as long as you facilitate that, you have this pathology of dependency, and they're looking to increase this. I mean, increasing the child tax credit again.
Yeah.
That's welfare.
Yep.
And if you want to do welfare, then create a welfare bill and put a vote to it.
I just don't see any effort at all from Republicans.
No,
I don't see any. You don't hear them talking about it. There wasn't, for example, January 1st, we're going to have a budget that starts reducing the waste. You had the whole hype on Doge, and that went nowhere.
Right.
Doge has gone absolutely nowhere. As of today, it may not be, but as of today, because of what the Republicans are doing in the budget, except for the parts of modernizing, which is good. But when it comes to cutting, it's been a complete failure.
Yeah.
And we were sold a bunch of BS by a number of Republicans stating that we're going to cut $2 trillion, we're going to cut $1 trillion, we're going to cut $150 billion, you're going to get a $5,000 check. And as we've always said, conservatives don't need to lie.
Yeah, and I don't see...
And don't need to BS. Stop BSing.
There's no indication at all that this is going to be any different. That something all of a sudden is going to change over... Basically, it would have to be this weekend.
Yeah. Now, I told you I saw the interview and read the quotes from J.D. Vance saying, no, we're going to put big cuts in by next week. Where?
I don't... Again,
it's like,
where's the head count on those big cuts? Because if they were there, if you have to put them in now, why weren't they there in the beginning? What's going to bring about the votes and the support for it? The support for it would have driven them to be there in the first place.
Right. And it was J.D. Vance saying, well, we're going to get illegal immigrants off of public welfare.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could have done that 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Well, we just found this out now?
Right.
No. Way oversold what they could do. Way oversold.
Mm-hmm.
To the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
We're all going to be rich. $5,000 checks for everybody. We're going to be cutting that much. From right now, they're not cutting a damn thing.
No.
Out of the budget.
Nope.
Oh, but we cut here. Yeah, but you're spending over there.
Right.
Yeah.
I see no indication at all that there's going to be change. Unless they're getting a lot of flack, which would be very encouraging, which means it's coming from the rank and file. It's coming from a grassroots thing. I don't see that yet.
I don't see that. I don't. Remember when Bush wanted to bail, when the whole bailout thing started for the automobile companies?
Mm-hmm.
Remember how the switchboard at Capitol
TARP won. Yeah.
Yeah, it fried.
They shut it. We shut it down.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Phones
right
never
now.
stopped ringing people when nobody's talking. Yeah, I saw yesterday on Fox News, the big players love this budget, and it's everybody that's going to get a benefit.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Nothing about, okay, business getting behind this thing because we're slowly going to cut. We're slowly going to be cutting, and this will boost business down the road. And no, it was everybody that's getting something out of it.
Yep.
Well, we're getting this and we're getting that. Well, who's not going to be happy about that?
Right.
Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
And how is it being paid for?
Right.
And the one thing that got me the most was when Rand Paul said they want to raise it by $5 trillion over 2 years, which means they expect a $2 trillion deficit this year.
Yeah.
And $3 trillion next year.
Yeah.
What's to debate fiscally with the Democrats come 2026 if that's the case? What is there? There's nothing to debate.
Nope.
Nobody can claim. Democrats probably can claim we didn't spend as much as vote for us. We've never spent as much as the Republicans.
Right. Yeah, it's not good.
No.
Because if that deadline, Memorial Day weekend, want to get it done by then, well, then it's going to be a busy weekend, and I can't wait to see what they're going to juggle or what they're going to promote next week.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
Yeah.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Recent natural disasters in Kentucky resulted in the Agriculture Department announcing eligibility for emergency nutrition assistance for impacted residents under the Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
The DSNAP program authorizes states to allow and provide 1 month of SNAP benefits to individuals and families who otherwise may not be eligible for SNAP benefits under normal circumstances, like in a situation where a family has lost their employment or they were displaced because of that natural disaster.
Food and Nutrition Service Administrator James C. Miller says DSNAP is one of the forms of emergency nutrition assistance provided by USDA.
FNS does provide food, shelter, and other mass feeding sites, distribute food packaging directly to households, offer flexibility in nutrition assistance programs, and approve eligible states' requests to operate FNS's Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, we never this week, we got to clear the desk and talk about everything we haven't talked about this week because we never discussed the impeachment attempt from Representative Benadar from Michigan.
Yeah.
Steve Byrne wrote, well, now that he's pulled the impeachment, now he needs to sue Supercuts. He's got that haircut, for God's sakes. It's like, I'm telling you, I saw him and I went, he has no, normally I don't judge somebody ever by their appearance.
Well,
but that haircut.
The haircut's something you can fix. Know what I mean? It only requires scissors and somebody with any experience at all.
I'm a hairist.
Buy a Flowbee.
But he pulled it. I was just reading from Roll Call. He pulled it, number one, because the Democratic leadership was against it.
Yeah.
And Democrats told him, think about where we are today. Democrats told him they would vote not to impeach Trump.
Yes. Which means if he forced it to a vote.
Right. He would be embarrassed because Democrats, to whatever margin, were going to vote against it because the leadership didn't want it. And they're like, not now. They're finally starting to think of maybe this isn't working for us.
Right.
And Douglas Schoen, the Democratic strategist, who along with Roy Teixeira, about a year ago, remember they were writing what Biden should do?
Yeah.
And they said, remember, Biden should be more MAGA. You can't. They're the ones that a year ago were saying, guys, it's not just Biden. It's that he sucks on the issues, and you agree with him on the issues. You dislike Biden. You don't want him to run, but you agree with him on the issues. The issues are actually what's driving the majority of this.
Yeah.
And here's Douglas Schoen on Fox Business yesterday. Here we go.
Would be the worst thing for my party to consider, much less file resolutions on. I think we need programs and policies that reflect the interests of working people, middle-class people, the best interests of the country, not political polarization, division, attacks on Trump, and attacks on ourselves, frankly, Seward. We really have got to stop the self-induced firing squads shooting at our own.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because,
that's funny.
You build a bigger martyr, but you also do so much damage to your own side over and over again because it just becomes the same thing. And I was telling you during the break, because they use the word dictator and fascist over and over again. Think about this, which they've done since the beginning of Trump's first term. No one on the right was calling Biden a fascist or a dictator because none of us believed he was actually in control.
He wasn't running the show.
So they've been the only ones using. It's one thing when things go back and forth and you're using the same kind of language back and forth, but no one on the right's been using that and didn't during the Biden years because we don't believe he was actually in control.
navigating the bizarrosphere. Every night, Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, the president here in the last hour posted this as he's getting ready to leave the Middle East.
It's been a tremendous time, and now it's time to go back home. My daughter had a baby. I'm going to go back home and see that little baby. And then we get back to a lot of work. We'll see what happens with Russia and Ukraine. I think it's something that's just, you got to stop the killing. 5,000 people a week. 5,000 young people a week on average being killed in a war that is going nowhere. It's a shame. Should have never happened. But we have other things to do also. Plus we have an Iran situation, which we're going to take care of. One way or the other, we're taking care of. It'll be taken care of 100%. It'll be done nicely or not nicely. And the not nicely is not a good thing for them. And I think we're talking to them, and I think they've come a long way.
Wow. For the president to be sitting in Abu Dhabi and saying the Iran thing's going to be taken care of one way or the other, and you have all the leaders right there surrounding him, that's imagery you don't ever see.
No. And again, I think it really goes to what we were saying about the purpose of this trip is to set the table and make sure everybody has a clear understanding here, but especially as you're basically, leaving on your way out the door. Oh, by the way, the Iran thing. We're going to handle that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh, yeah, and the Iran thing.
Well, because, it is the perfect exclamation point on a trip like this. So that everybody, again, is clear. All the players involved are clear. The president, just now, those remarks, that's the world stage. Anytime a president talks, it's on the world stage. But especially in a summit like this and a trip like this, his first trip abroad in his second term, which tells you that it's a priority. And the big finish is, oh, yeah, we're going to handle the Iran thing.
Yeah. Amazing imagery. It really, just watching it here I was like, whoa. When he went there, I just went, almost got goosebumps going, this is something you never see.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get to the SCOTUS hearing yesterday on universal injunctions from district courts. That's what it was really about. That was really the substance of it. Birthright citizenship was the actual issue involved, so we'll get to both of those. But I just want to play, this is actually from the hearing, Justice Clarence Thomas yesterday talking to Solicitor General John Sauer.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction. There's a dispute about Perkins against Lucan's Oil going back to 1940. And of course, we point to the court's opinion that reversed that universal injunction issued by the D.C. Circuit and said it's profoundly wrong. Now, if you look at the cases that the either party cite, you see a common theme. The cases that we cite, like National Treasury's Employment Union, Perkins against Lucan's Oil, Frothingham and Massachusetts against Mellon, going back to Scott against Donald, and all of those are cases where the court considered and addressed the sort of universal, in that case, statewide issue of provision of injunctive relief. So when the court has considered and addressed this, it has consistently said you have to limit the remedy to the plaintiffs who appearing in court and complaining of that remedy.
So we survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those are very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007 in our cert petition in Summers against Earth Island Institute. We pointed out that the Ninth Circuit had started doing this in a whole bunch of cases involving environmental claims.
There you go.
Yeah.
I still think that one will go down to defeat, even though there were some questions on it. But I thought this was interesting because we explained why when we got to birthright citizenship that we don't see where any of the judges, if you actually look at the history of around the 14th Amendment and why it existed, it was specific to, slaves. You know, that was specific, which is why we even said when it came to any other thing where the 14th Amendment is ever used, whether it was Obamacare or whatever, we said, no, this was about a specific idea. And even Supreme Courts have expanded that and I believe perverted what the 14th Amendment is supposed to be. But this is a gentleman from the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Sparkowski, yesterday talking about the history of the 14th Amendment and birthright citizenship.
If you look at the history of the 14th Amendment, you look at its passage, it was very clear that it did not confer birthright citizenship. In fact, most of the legal scholars today, liberal ones who say it does, obviously have never looked at the original history of its passage, and they ignore the second half of the citizenship provision. You know, what it says is you're a citizen if you're born or naturalized in the U.S. and you are subject to its jurisdiction. And that second phrase is crucial. Lynn Trumbull, he was one of the senators who was a key sponsor and writer of this amendment, said that means that you owe your political allegiance to the United States, not any foreign power. And an individual who is born in the United States, whose parents are citizens of a foreign country, whether they're here legally or illegally, owes his or her political allegiance to that foreign country. They are not citizens of the U.S. The understanding of the 14th Amendment for decades after it was passed was what you and I are talking about, which is it does not confer birthright citizenship. It was during the Franklin Roosevelt administration that suddenly they started pushing the idea that that second part, that second requirement, did not matter. But it's important for people to understand the last time the Supreme Court looked at this issue was over 125 years ago.
Right.
There you go. And he was on with Mark Levin. And then you have, let me just scroll down here, Representative Wesley Hunt talking about it in front of Congress. He posted this yesterday about birthright citizenship.
I understand more than anyone that we are a nation of immigrants. But there's a difference, stark difference, between giving citizenship to the children of slaves, the children of those subject to the Middle Passage, the children of sharecroppers, and the children of those who were once considered property, and giving citizenship to the children of people who cross the border illegally, stay in taxpayer-funded luxury hotels, who receive free Xboxes, free cell phones, free flights around the country, and 3 square meals a day. There's a big difference. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, Rosedale Plantation in Louisiana. He had to join the Union Color Guard to gain his freedom. By morphing the citizenship clause into something that it wasn't meant to be, it's demeaning to descendants of slaves like me. And not just me who served this country, but my father is a retired colonel. My sister went to West Point as a retired colonel. My brother went to West Point. We are talking about a direct descendant of a slave that earned the right to be in this country and passed that ilk down to his ancestry. People bled for it. People died for it. And it means something. The purpose of the 14th Amendment that President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order is that the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment was never meant to apply to children of illegal or legal aliens. Allowing birthright citizenship to stay in place dilutes the citizenship of not just black Americans like me, but every single American citizen that had to earn it the right way. Let's say this in black and white. Either you're a U.S. citizen or you are not. Now, the left has spent decades cheapening what it means to be an American citizen. They've quite literally been chipping away at the basic value of American citizenship. They pretend to be altruistic, but we know the truth. Ozzy Osbourne's daughter said on The View that we have to let illegal immigrants in this country because who else will clean our toilets? We hear it all the time. Who will pick our crops? And even though that we know that American citizens are the majority of those people picking our crops, we know what you're insinuating.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Who has more credibility, Ozzy's daughter or Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah, right.
But Wesley Hunt's point is the point that we made, the original intent of the 14th Amendment. And that's, I talked about the Wall Street Journal that was trying to make the point that birthright citizenship is clear in the Constitution. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Because normally the Wall Street Journal editorial page is pretty good on constitutional issues. But Wesley Hunt made the exact same point that we made. What was the 14th Amendment for?
Right. Why does it exist?
Right. Did the 14th Amendment exist so illegal immigrant children could become citizens?
Right.
Or was it because of the children of slaves and slaves, as he said, that earned their right to be here and did not come here illegally, but came here legally as property.
Right.
By the way, we're not advocating that. I want to make this clear. We're against murder and slavery, just to make sure. But that's the legal point that he's trying to make. They came here. They didn't choose to come here, but once they got here and the generations were there, you owed them citizenship at that point once you freed them. That was the point.
Right. Not people who come here willingly.
And can anybody actually debate that point?
No. No. Because if you're going to cite the 14th Amendment, then you have to cite the reason for the 14th Amendment in the first place.
Yes. And that's why, again, when I was hearing, and again, they're asking questions, and the questions don't necessarily lead to what the decisions would be. But to me, there is no other way to look at it based on the actual facts of the 14th Amendment, why the 14th Amendment exists.
Yeah.
And then say, well, wait a minute, you're saying that anybody can come in this country illegally, have a child, bring that child back to their home country, they can come back as an adult, not being born in the United States, but being part of a regime of a different country that is anti-American, and they can just come here,
right, and
have all the full rights of an American citizen, because this was the calculated move of another country, because this is what one of the things you worry about,
right?
A country attempting to infiltrate the United States with citizens down the road.
And once they achieve those same citizens' rights, then they get power.
Yeah. And so, no, you cannot make that case. You cannot make the case. That was part of my frustration listening to it yesterday. I'm like, well, you have it wrong. You're making assumptions that are wrong.
Right.
And if you look at a precedent that was made, the precedent was wrong.
Yes. But
again, or the precedent, for example, the one from 1890 actually didn't apply.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't apply because the two people at that point, it doesn't exactly apply to what's going on now, were legal residents of the United States.
Right.
So the context was actually different than this. 866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I just popped into my mind. Chip Roy said, I'm willing to stay the weekend. Is Congress staying the weekend to do all this stuff? Are they working over the weekend?
I haven't heard.
I would think they probably have to. But Chip Roy said he was, I'll stay here all weekend, is what he said. Well,
now,
are you staying all weekend?
Is he saying we should stay all weekend to work this out and nobody else is saying it? Or does he have word that they may call basically everybody to stay for the weekend. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But everything this weekend is going to start to gel. You're going to hear more, and by our Sunday night, Monday morning show, it's going to be chaos. Because I don't expect them to come in and go, oh, you know what we forgot to do? Put in real cuts. I mean, that's not going to happen. So I don't know what it looks like.
And then as they start counting the votes as to who they have on it,
yeah,
then the attacks will come that the ones that, and I don't know which side it's going to be, because I don't know who's going to, is it going to be the conservatives that hold it up, or is it going to be the ones, in the blue states, the Republicans that want, massive SALT deductions.
Right.
Which way is it going to be?
Or a combination of both.
The spending cutters?
Yeah.
Or the spenders?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.